Okay, welcome everybody to our How to Network at Conferences for Students and Early Career Seekers webinar. So we have a fantastic panel today who will introduce themselves very soon. So this session kind of came about from a common theme that evolved from our Building Life Science Adventures conference back in March, and that was the real importance for being able to network and having good communication skills when starting out your career. So something else that I would also like to highlight is that this year we launched the On Helix Student Bursary. So this initiative gives students a chance to apply for a free place to attend on Helix by buddying up with somebody who is already attending or within the industry. So if you are a student that is interested in doing that, then please do feel free to get in touch after the session. And if you are maybe a little bit worried about not having somebody to buddy up with, we'd be more than happy to try and pair you. So finally, before we begin and I hand you over to Paul, just a few housekeeping points. If you don't mind just keeping your microphones on mute while the panel are talking, and please feel free to ask any questions throughout via the chat box. I'll try and pick them up through the session. And you will notice that the session is being recorded, so there will be a link available afterwards. Okay, I think that's it from me. So I will hand you over to Paul. Thanks.
Thank you, Jasmine, and hi everybody. The mix of people on the panel is trying to be representative of a number of strands. And just to give you a potted history of myself, I've been in the industry for 40-something years, which means that my career is at the other end of the spectrum as a lot of people who are on this this session. And I climbed various slippery poles over the years and was a managing director and a VP for a Californian group before helping to set up Transgroup, which is a drug development house. And one of the beauties of being where I've been is that I've touched on pretty much every part of the pharma and biotech industry over time. So having also been a headhunter, it seemed an appropriate place for me to try and lead some thinking about how you can maximize your career path line by using your networking skills to reach the right people who can influence and mentor you throughout that career pathway. So do you want to show the slides?
Yeah, I'll get those up now.
Yeah. So this is what we're at. Next slide. These are the people who are on my panel. So Hector, do you want to introduce yourself as a, shall we say, somebody at the start of that career path? Although you have a track record, I know.
Yes, thank you, Paul. Yes, my name is Hector. I am a student at Birkbeck University, University London College. I do biomedicine. I'm first year BSc. I studied physics in Germany. I did up to master's degree equivalent. I work full time as well while I study in the evening. I am an Azure administrator. So I'm quite busy. So I work in the daytime from 9 to 5, and then I do my uni work in the evenings. In regards to my background, I have been around the world really. My mother is from Ukraine. My father is from Equatorial Guinea. I grew up in Africa. I couldn't read or write until I was 13 because there was no schools around, you know, where I grew up. So I had a quite a hard way to get into education and then take it from there until here where I am now. Along this way, I learned a lot of how to succeed in education and how to talk to people and how to network to other people's, no matter your background and your circumstances, you know. Yeah, that's my background, and I hope.
Thanks, Hector. Kim, because you're front line in career, so let's get your flavour of the month.
So my name's Kim, and I'm an employability and careers advisor at Anglia Ruskin University. I have a background in science, so I have a degree in forensic science before I ended up in the labs in analytical chemistry. And then from there, I went into scientific recruitment, working for some specialists in the field, recruiting into all areas of science. Before I found myself at ARU, and I have been here for 5 years this year. So that's kind of me in a nutshell.
Thanks, Kim. I noticed it's Ruskin University rather than university. I apologise.
That's all right.
Yeah.
People normally get it as Anglian Ruskin, so.
Well, absolutely. Isla.
Hello. Yeah, I've come a slightly different route, although some similarities there. I'm a languages graduate and one of those students that didn't have a clue what they were going to do while they were doing their degree, which I come across quite a lot of those, and I can very much relate. I went into recruitment as well, although more commercial recruitment. I was dealing with language jobs to start with, and then branching out into broader, mostly commercial roles. And in the course of that time, I lived and worked in the Netherlands and Italy, as well as London and Scotland. And then I decided, like many people do, got to a certain point, decided to have a career change and moved into careers work about 10, 11 years ago. And most of that has been at UEA for the last 8.5 years. But I've been supporting science and medicine students in that time and learning lots about those different fields. I've definitely found the reason I'm here today partly is because I really care about networking, and I'm someone who I think, like many people, would describe themselves as an introvert fundamentally, even though I like people, and it's not something that's come naturally. And I've had a journey over my life from being a child who started, speech and drama classes at school and would freeze up horribly whenever I was in a performance situation. My mind would go blank. I'd get that complete panic reaction. And that continued for sort of several years of, sometimes that would come up less often, but in situations at work or situations, interviews and things like that. So I think that sort of fear and panic that a lot of people experience when we talk about networking, and especially, approaching professionals at different events, I can really relate to that. And it's just, like many people, networking is something I've worked at as a skill. I've got gradually more confident with it, and I've used it in many different ways throughout my career. And going to conferences has very much been one of those things, as well as interacting with people online. And it's made such a massive difference to my career that I love to talk about it, because I want other people to feel comfortable with doing it, and help break down any barriers that might stop them from doing it effectively, so that they can use it to help them in their careers. So yeah, that's for me.
Thanks, guys. Just put this in context. One of the things, by the way, I'm a pharmacologist by training, and that you would have thought would lend me to slot into pharma and biotech readily. I've had 5 careers, and what I think we can all attest to, apart from Hector, who's somewhat closer to the beginning of his career, is that your career will go in directions that you don't understand and have never thought about. And therefore the networking element of your skill set is one of those skills that will be with you to help you make those proper decisions by being able to talk to people or to find opportunity. And I think that's probably what we're going to focus on more than anything else. So can I have the next slide, please? So in terms of networking, we're going to look at the concepts, but also the what, the why, the where, the who, the how, in terms of taking a systemic approach to networking. And key to that is, what are you trying to achieve, either in terms of your career or in terms of any particular aspect of this part of your career. So I'm going to come to Kim first and talk about, how do you envisage a career? What's a career got to look forward to? Have you got a desired career in mind? And your thoughts on that, Kim, please.
So I would say, whether you have a specific career in mind or not, networking can definitely be advantageous. If you've got that career in mind, you might want to be looking to tailor your approach to networking to really kind of help you kind of find those next steps. Or if you've not got that career in mind, you might want to be using it to help you with your research. So really, in terms of networking and having a career in mind or not, you just need to have an idea of what you want to achieve when you are attending events, whether they're in person or online. Attempting to network without a plan, I personally think is a bit of a recipe for kind of wasting your time. So I would always say, you know, regardless of whether you have your career kind of set, kind of your career plan set or not, think about what you hope to achieve from your networking. Is it to create those industry contacts, build your profile, to assist you in your job hunt? Or are you wanting to network to, like I said earlier, you know, learn more about potential careers at the same time as building your profile? I would also say, though, that you really should have reasonable expectations. So kind of think about what you would hope to accomplish and set your expectations so that they play up to your strengths. And that will really help you to get ahead in that. But I'd go back and say, you know, I'm really kind of the perspective that, you know, regardless of whether you have something in mind of what you want to be doing, network is definitely the way forward to get yourself ahead of the game. It isn't easy for all of us, much like Isla said earlier. I'm definitely of the more kind of reserved, shall we say, type of person when I'm going to these events. But everybody can do it. I'm very much of the fact that if I can do it, everybody can do it. And to be honest with you, when I first started out, I didn't really have a career in mind, but going to conferences and attending kind of all different types of events and meetings really helped my career evolve. So my career hasn't been something that I've kind of naturally planned out or thought about. Definitely didn't see myself in careers initially, but through kind of networking and meeting different people, I've discovered something that I really love and enjoy. So it really can kind of be beneficial for you, whether you do have something or don't. Yeah, so I hope I've kind of answered that question. It's quite a broad question there in terms of kind of how you want to use networking.
Thanks, Kim. We'll tease that out in a second. I'm going to come to Isla in a second, but Jasmine just reminded me about a bit of housekeeping. If you have any questions, shove them in the chat room so that she can collate, and we'll answer them as we go through. Kim alluded to the fact that you have to go with a game plan. Isla, can you put some meat on that? Because game plans are what is your ultimate deliverable that you're trying to achieve, but there's also that opportunistic element of trying to be adaptable. So thoughts on that, please.
Yes, absolutely. I'd actually, just before I start talking about that, I'd like to invite the people who are kind of here today just to pop in the chat if they've got anything that they think they might like to achieve from networking. And if there are any particular events or things that they might want to go along to. Because I think in terms of when we're giving our, when we're talking through these points, it might help us to have that kind of information.
Thanks,
If people want to pop that in the chat, then we'll keep an eye on it as well. So yeah, I mean, Kim's made some great points there. In terms of having a game plan, I think it's going to depend a lot in terms of what you're trying to achieve and what you're looking for in general. So some people may have maybe at the very early stages of their career where they don't have any particular strong ideas of what they want to do, and things are very broad in general, and they might just be wanting to learn about a particular career field. So it might be a case of quite a broad game plan of maybe going. If I take an example, again from a careers perspective, there is there's a career conference that the Royal Society of Biology runs every year, which I went to a few years ago. It's a sort of offline version. Obviously, it had an online version in the last year or so. And I've helped students who were wanting to go along to that. And as with many conferences, there are talks, speakers giving those talks, and then there is a sort of an exhibition area where you can go around and you can go to stands and talk to people. And even nowadays, there's sort of the online equivalent of that, where you've got, you know, rooms where a speaker will give a talk, and you know, you can kind of go around and talk to people at booths. So there's some parallels there. And if you're at an early stage and you don't have a very clear game plan, it might be a case of going around and trying to think of some good, intelligent questions to ask people to open up your knowledge and gain a better understanding of, you know, of a particular sector, for example, or in the case of the RSB careers conference, it might be just trying to explore what areas of interest are there. You might find that actually when you're at a conference, the information that you learn by sitting in on different talks actually helps you change your game plan. And obviously that's an element of being flexible, being open to new opportunities. So going along to talks, identifying things that you might want to find out about, but then very much kind of recalibrating as you're going through and thinking, okay, what can I get more, you know, what else do I want to find out here? What opportunities do I have? So there may be opportunities to follow up after a talk and talk to a speaker. And that's a really good opportunity to think about more specific questions, building on what you've learned from the talk. Thinking of something more concrete that you want to learn about, maybe picking up and saying, you know, oh, you mentioned this particular aspect of your work, or, you know, this about getting into the field. Could you tell me more about it? Then if you're more going kind of around booths and talking to people, then I'll try not to jump ahead here because there's a lot of overlap in terms of some of the things we're talking about.
It's an iterative process, Isla.
It is, absolutely. No, so I'll step back and stay with the overview here, actually, because I think we're going to delve into some of the details in later points. But the bottom line is try and have a game plan. I gave an example of someone who might not be very clear on what they want to do, and I work with a lot of people in that kind of position. But some people have a much clearer idea, and in that case, what's really helpful, and again, we're going to touch on this later, is try to see as much as possible in advance of time who is going to be there. Now, whether you have only information about the speakers and the talks, that information is generally readily available online, or in fact, you know, printed versions if you're going to a face-to-face event. But quite often, actually, other delegates can be just as interesting to talk to, and sometimes a bit more accessible. Now, there might be particular people that you want to talk to, and what I've done with past careers conferences. So if I take an example from my situation, having gone to a past conference for my professional body, AGCAS, then there have been certain people that I've wanted to talk to, and I've looked through the delegate list in advance to see who's going to be there, because that's, for many events and conferences, that is shared. It's not always, but if it is, you can look through the delegates list and see, is there anybody there who might interest you? And then you have to figure out, how do I find those people? So again,
we'll get to that, Isla. We'll get to that.
Absolutely. So
okay.
That can be part of the game plan, is thinking of those aspects.
Yeah, I think what both Kim and Isla have alluded to is that, you know, preparation is vital. Even if you don't have a career line in view, because you know, going to these things, these events are, as a student, they're not very expensive, but they are expensive in time. So it's you know, it's up to you to do that prep. What we're going to talk about is the networking itself. I mean, why it's important, and Hector's going to talk about that in a second, but also what you can do to help prepare yourself, because it's and I think it was Kim who said, you know, some of these things are not natural if you're not a gregarious, outgoing individual, if you're somewhat introspective, but they are still skills that you need, and there are ways and means of addressing some of those hurdles, which we hope to touch on. So Hector, networking, it's vital. Why?
Definitely. So, well, the first thing is, I think networking is something natural we all do, but maybe we're not aware of it, because if you think of the essence, what networking actually is, it's actually based on the fact that no man is an island. you know. And I think the saying is really true, because it means that we as human beings, we do really badly when we're isolated from others, right? And that's a fact. I mean, if that's a fact, then the opposite must be true. That means that if we network, we would perform well, right? That's basically the foundation of why you would want to network with others. And the top reasons why I think that networking is vital in my path as a student who wants to build a career in life science, and as a professional, as your administrator who wants to change careers, is basically, I would say, three main reasons. The first one would be, it's an avenue to exchange ideas. So meaning, because you can never tell, how much you really know without listening to others. And when I receive ideas, for example, it helps me building up best practices, basically to reassure that my career path is right. And for instance, I attended the Life Science Adventures event last month, and I met people and I linked with people, and especially I met a great entrepreneur and bioengineer, Davidson Ate, who really, I spoke with him for 2 hours, and he opened my mindset that much that I really know so much about life science and where I want to go and how to progress from a student's perspective. I could never have this insight if I wouldn't have networked with him, right? This is one example why network is vital.
Okay, you make a valid point, Hector. It's not simply about trying to find a conduit to a job. It's about understanding the environment and the ecosystem that in which you're potentially going to play in,
Yeah.
and decide what floats your boat.
Yeah.
When I was, I spent most of my career in R&D, but when I was acting in a headhunting space, I always used to say, for God's sake, don't pick a job just because you need a job. Make sure that is a job that you will shine in, because that'll, and that requires you to be interested at the very least of the subject that you're going to do. Otherwise, you're always playing catch up. And I in terms of we're going to talk about some of the techniques and things in a minute. So I'm going to skip the bit, Isla, about how to help yourself, because I think some of that will come out naturally from the conversation. But I suppose one of the immediate questions that people always ask is, where do I go? Which events should I attend? What's the best way of learning about an area that I may know a lot about, may not know much about, but I can actually get a flavour for what I want to do. So, Kim, because it's literally is what you do. Talk about career centres and how that can help to understand not just one field but several fields.
Yeah, absolutely. So university career centres are a fantastic resource of information. They will vary from university to university, obviously, but typically you're going to find information and resource to assist you in achieving your career goals in your chosen sector. But additionally, if you're one of those who aren't sure about what you want to go on to next, there's still a gold mine of kind of information and resource. You might find that you've got job boards where employers might be actively posting their jobs, sometimes exclusively at those universities, or employer pages where you can actually learn more about the various employers and be able to follow them, much like you would on other social media platforms. You can set up alerts for new opportunities, for example, and some are going to have events pages whereby they're advertising both internal events, so your kind of on campus or virtual at the moment careers fairs, but also external events like the ones that Nucleus puts on, and other professional bodies and things like that. Along with the more kind of generic kind of recruitability items that you might find typically on there. As I say, you might have custom pages that are dedicated to employability and careers within your chosen field. So, I mean, I highly recommend, you know, one of the first places I always kind of ask everybody to have a look at is their university's career centre, because if it's not on there, you know, then you can kind of take that conversation elsewhere and kind of find that information. But I would always say go there first, because 9 times out of 10, what you're looking for is on that. And that includes information on networking and events and how to really kind of get your career off the ground. So I'm a big advocate for them, Paul. I don't know about anybody else on the panel, but I'm a huge advocate.
I think as a starting point, it gives you the breadth of opportunity, which is the key thing, because if you're either in a scientific endeavor or not, you never know, or rarely know, unless you've got somebody who's really adept at giving you appropriate guidance, what you're capable of, and what not just what you're capable of, but what is out there.
Absolutely.
I said I'm a pharmacologist, and I had no idea about what you know, a pharmacologist could do in the wider pharmaceutical space, because I didn't understand the pharmaceutical space. And so I went into one area and, you know, very rapidly decided I wanted to go somewhere else. But you know, that's the information is there. You just have to go and look for it. And it's something Isla alluded to, which is about pinpointing who you can buttonhole. And I say buttonhole advisedly. You have to be careful, because some of these people are in huge demand, and you know, there are techniques which we'll go into about how you show yourself off to your best in the best light, but without being pushy. But in terms of you talked about identifying your targets. It sounds like you're stalking them, Isla. But I think it's more nuanced than that. Well, I bloody well hope it's more nuanced than that. So speaker lists you've alluded to. Speakers tend to get gaggles of people around them, some of whom they want to talk to because they're in the similar field and the same sort of level. But it is also true that the delegates who surround them are quite likely also to be the delegates you want to talk to. So if you can't talk to the speaker, you talk to the delegates around them and strike up a conversation, which can be just as useful. But do you want to expand on that at all, Isla, or shall we move on to the next subject?
In terms of identifying where?
Well, yeah, I mean, you talked about looking at speakers lists and you know, people who might turn up. And from my perspective, and I know I'm talking across you here, it's identifying people can be tough, but there are tools, and we'll talk about LinkedIn in a bit. But in terms of you're at a conference, how do you find somebody you want to talk to? That sort of idea. If you can't get hold of the speaker, how do you get hold of somebody who might be interesting?
Okay, yeah, I'm happy to have a try with that. So I guess again, it depends on the setup of the conference. If it's a huge conference, these things are much trickier, but I've certainly been at conferences where I've had a look at the delegates list at the start of the event or whenever I got that, and identified key people that I thought I might want to approach. And again, if things are offline, people tend to have name badges. So I have had situations of going around trying to skim people's name badges. So that's a more probably less technical approach.
That is an extraordinarily good way of doing it, I have to say. You know, randomly meeting people, but identify them before you talk to them. Absolutely.
Yes, where possible. So that's a point of, if you are going to a face-to-face conference, try to wear your name badge somewhere obvious where people can read it, I'd say, as well, because I've also been to events where people's name badges weren't clear and you don't really want to go kind of peering around. But of course, other approaches is think about if there's somebody that you want to try to find, is there anyone else there that might know them who could perhaps introduce you? Because if you can arrange an introduction of some kind, that can be very valuable. So actually sometimes approaching the organizers, the administrators, the people who are running the event, they may be able to give you some guidance on that. So it may be worth asking them if they have advice or if they know someone that, or if they can introduce you.
They'll also steer you clear of the people who are not going to be very useful to you. and that's equally valid. You can waste time. In terms of, okay, so Hector, from your perspective, you're looking at who do you want to connect with, and talk about the clarity of the deliverable.
Yeah.
What to talk to them, and what do you want to get out of it?
Yeah. Well, like mentioned before, networking is one part, right? But you also have to view the relevance to your career and the important part where you want to take it to. So rather than networking with anyone, you should do your research first, who you want to network with, and then see how you can contribute to their success, and as well how you stand to benefit from their knowledge, right, as a student. And in my case, I use networking to help me reassessing my qualifications. Like we all know that you can get somewhere by qualifications, but in the real world is you get to the highest level if you have a good networking and you have a good relationship to them. So what I really look for is basically what people are out there who can guide me in terms of mentoring me, or in terms of giving me advice from the industry point of view. People who work in the industry and the positions that I want to work in. I approach these people. I ask them basically how's the work done, and what I want to hear as a student is basically, yes, it's worth it to spend that much time working hard at uni, studying hard, and eventually living it when you finish university, because you're going to spend a lot of time of your life in this position, and if that's your passion. So as a student, I'm looking for people who can give me these answers to my questions while I'm in uni. So I know, okay, it's worth it to put hard work in a specific direction. So I try to navigate, not broadly, but pinpoint through my career.
If I can add to that, Hector, the one of the things that some of the things that I found worked well is trying to be really quite broad, at least initially when you have those discussions, because you don't know where life is going to take you. The thing about qualifications is that they are purely preparation. If you're very lucky and you've studied, say, to postdoctorate level, and you have a particular bent, people will be coming after you because you've got this knowledge and skill set. But for Joe Public, BSc or PhD, who's been working in something really quite esoteric, it's not the knowledge that you have, it's your ability to engage with other knowledge and be able to process it in a way that actually is productive.
Yeah.
That's what most employers are looking for. They may be looking for a particular skill set, but that really is not the issue. The issue is, can you adapt to a new set of circumstances intelligently and be productive? And so some of the conversations you may want to have is about, an opportunity that you've never even thought about, something might pop up, or just plain simply ask them how they did it. Because most people, and I include myself, are more than happy to wobble on about how they made their career. And I've said to the panel at another meeting that the issue for most people is not that you have a career line, is that your career will take all sorts of different directions, and it's about snatching opportunity when they arise and living with the consequences and not being afraid of change. But the most people who reach the top of the trees will tell you that they have not had a linear pathway to that career, and you should not expect that either. The first stepping stone is important, getting the grounding, getting the understanding, but then you branch out from there. And I'm going to shut up about that. I think we need to spend a little time at least on how to play the field during the networking event. Isla's already mentioned about, it's if you have somebody to introduce you to the great and the good, it's a lot easier than just going up cold and button-holding people. But describe what you consider to be etiquette, as it were, of personal meetings, Isla, and obviously online is not too different, but there are some other elements to it. Do's and don'ts.
Of course, and there's actually several things that you said that were mentioned in the last 5 minutes that have made my brain go off in about 3 different directions. So if I get a chance to come back to them, I'd love.
That's known as being adaptable, Isla.
Indeed, indeed. Do you want me to divert, or do you want me to answer your actual question?
Do whatever floats your boat, Isla, as long as it's interesting.
Okay, I'll do my best. Thank you. Well, in that case, Hector raised an excellent point, well, several excellent points, but the one that I wanted to pick up on was he talked about asking questions. And I'd agree that I think this is a fantastic benefit that you can get from networking, because as a careers advisor, I'm always getting students who come to me with questions, and some of them I can help answer and some of them I don't know, but a lot of our job is helping them figure out how they can answer the questions. And much of that answer is actually helping them find people who have those answers, which is often people who are out there in the field. So a lot of what people can do with networking is to help them prepare and get the most out of it, is actually figure out what their questions are. And in order to do that, because if they have a clear question, they can go and pose that to different people and hopefully get the kind of answers that they're looking for. And I absolutely agree that doing your research online and trying to find out as much as you can about particular sectors or roles or whatever it is you want to learn about is very helpful. But there are often questions that you simply do have that you can't find the answers to online. And those are the kind of things that actually talking to people in the field is great for. So, but to help you with that, actually, a lot of people think about, what can I do? Who is out there? But starting before you even go to the event, being clear as possible about your skills, your values. You've mentioned about actually some of those things are the most important that employers look for. What any kind of goals that you have and what your experience is, and being ready to talk about those things, because they will come up when you have a conversation with someone. Be prepared if you ask questions for them to ask questions back about you. So actually thinking about those aspects and being able to highlight key things that people might need to know about you. But also if you think about those goals and those values and those skills, those might help you identify what are the questions you really want to get the answers to. And then when you go and actually have these conversations, whether it's online or offline, hopefully you can get the information that you need.
Thank you.
And I don't know if now's a good point to bring in that graphic or not about.
Well, I think it certainly introduces the topics that you might want to touch on in terms of both engendering interest in the people that you're talking to, but also to try and get value for yourself. I'm going to say this with a degree of humility. The conversation should not be transactional. You should not go into conversation expecting that you're going to get something from that or give it. But it often happens that that's what occurs. It should be a conversation rather than an interrogation. All I'm saying is you've got to be subtle to a degree. In terms of, as you said before, Isla, in terms of getting either an introduction from the career service, because they have the connections within the uni to be able for you to piggyback on, or you might, I hate to say this, but friends and family does work genuinely. If you have connections in a sector that you're interested in, use and abuse them, because we've all done it, and everybody, well, most people aren't unhappy with that. But you have to be clear with the reasoning about your connecting. And Hector, I know you're going to have some words about this, but I'm going to. Some areas that I want to touch on is when you're picking a topic, and I've shared this with the guys, it's a question of you have to show them, whoever you're talking to, that you're interested in what they are doing, not trying to shove your CV down their neck, because that's not going to work. And the other thing which, and I see too often, is ensure that you're actually really in your intellectual comfort zone, because there's nothing that puts people off more than if you're bullshitting to use a term. So you ask informed questions. I think that's what the nature of it. So any of the guys want to pitch in on that, you know, in terms of techniques, things you shouldn't do, the things you should do, how do you approach somebody cold, as it were? Any thoughts? I'm not going to pinpoint. I'm just opening this up to all three of you. Anybody want to pitch in on that one?
Well, I can say some words as
Yeah, go on.
little ones. I mean, as a student, I don't really. I mean, there's a benefit and a disadvantage of being at the beginning somewhere. That's how I see it. You are still free to ask questions, and people are not going to judge you for that, right? Because you're still in the process of going somewhere, and that's an advantage. That's how I see it, because you shouldn't be afraid of asking the important questions for you. So if you see someone who you're interested in, that's how I would approach it. I would just go to him and ask him my questions that are really important to me, and it will transpire to him as well that this is something that I'm really genuinely interested in, and I think this is a good starting point for further development from students.
And I think you've encapsulated better than I did about putting the question in such a format that you are looking for additional information rather than you trying to put out that you already know the answer to the question you're asking. That's certainly off-putting. In terms of, because I think part of connection is, yes, for information purposes, but there may be beyond that, you know, genuine reasons for reconnecting now, and obviously that needs to be to a degree of mutual benefit. But you know, what are the sort of things that, from your perspective, Kim, things that are good reasons for having a further conversation?
So with regards to kind of reconnecting with people, I think it is really important to kind of keep on top of that network. You know, once you've already got it established, it's not going to do anything unless you do something about it. It will just lie dormant. There is no bad time to start reconnecting with people. It keeps you in kind of people's minds, but also you never know what opportunities it can open up along the way. You know, it might be a year or 6 months down the line since you've spoken to somebody, but you don't know what's been going on, you know, on their side of things. So by simply reconnecting and kind of opening that doorway and that conversation up again, that could lead to future projects that you might be collaborating on, potential kind of business partners if that's the way you're going, or it could kind of, you know, open up a career path that maybe you hadn't actually thought about. But you know, this person's kind of, you know, once you've reconnected with them, they've maybe kind of looked at your online profiles or what you've had to say in your kind of communications, and whether that's picking up the phone and talking to them or via email. You know, it can remind them of kind of what you've been doing and all the great things that you can bring to the table potentially, and it could help you on your way to that dream job, if there is such a thing. But definitely it's something that is so important. We can't just connect with people once and let things go. So you know, definitely reconnection can bring out all sorts of things.
I'm going to jump ahead of where I was going, because you've raised an element, Kim, that made me think about, you know, the methods of doing that reconnection. And you know, we historically people have always shared business cards and things like that, which is a bit passé. If you are not on LinkedIn now, you should be. And I say to everybody in this listening to this, LinkedIn is the single most powerful networking tool beyond Twitter, beyond Facebook, or anything of that nature. LinkedIn gives you access to people at a level that you understand what they're doing right now, there and then. And it's a great tool for LinkedIn has a one of these QR things at the top of your LinkedIn profile, which you can actually share with people if they've got a QR reader on their iPhone, which automatically means that you're connected there and then. It's much more powerful than a business card, for instance, which you have to scan or put in manually. But the other aspect of LinkedIn is that if you get a first connection with somebody in LinkedIn, and if you've met them, they're likely to say yes, is that it tells you when their birthday is. And it tells you when they've changed jobs, which gives you a reason for reconnecting there and then. Whether or not you put it in your diary, I'll reconnect with Joe Blogs in 3 months, fine. But LinkedIn is a really, really powerful tool, but you have to understand it and you have to use it properly. And it is an immense tool for people who are working either in the career industry or who are looking to build their careers, because you can network assiduously online without having to do the face-to-face stuff. And I told the guys earlier, I got 7,500 first line connections on LinkedIn. And every time I want to post something about, you know, the stuff that we're doing in COVID-19, etc., I just bang it out on LinkedIn, and I get 500 responses saying, "Oh, very interesting, da da da." It's things like that that get you noticed. And one of the things about networking is you're trying to raise your profile. So LinkedIn, very powerful tool. In terms of face-to-face stuff, and I'm going to ask Isla and Kim, because you're probably more experienced at this than most. When's a good time to shut up at a meeting? Seriously, that's a serious question, because you can get very boring.
Absolutely, and that's actually a really, really tricky one. Honestly, small talk, whether you're networking or kind of in a meeting or interview, it's going to take as long as it takes. But the trick is to be able to read the person you're talking to. Now, definitely be easier for some of us than others. Some of us aren't very good at reading other people. Others are very good at kind of understanding, you know, the nuances in body language and you know, kind of facial expressions and things like that. But with practice, we can all actually do it. So, for example, if the person that you're talking to, their body language shows that they're not necessarily interested, they might be getting a little fidgety, or maybe they're avoiding eye contact. Now, certainly avoidance of eye contact doesn't always mean that they're bored, but it could be that their responses are short or unengaging. Then it could be time to move on. You still need to be polite when doing so. You know, if you think that, you know, oh, they don't want to listen to me anymore, you still need to be kind of, you know, graceful about it, I suppose. So don't be abrupt or offensive about it. But basically, if people kind of see you being really straightforward and honest, it's going to make things less awkward for all. I don't know if Isla has anything to kind of add to that, but that's kind of my one. It's a tricky one, but it can be done.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I think there's certain things that you can have to say that, and I think that this is the kind of thing where you can prepare a few phrases both to introduce yourself and also to extricate yourself. That if you just get comfortable with those, they can help you kind of insert yourself and extract yourself as relevant. So just comments, you know, starting comments to start there could be things like, you know, just introducing yourself and saying, you know, you really appreciated their talk. You'd love to ask them a couple of questions about some aspects. Would that be okay? But you know, likewise, or you know, you for extracting yourself, then often say, you know, thank you very much. I've got a couple of other people I want to go and catch before the end of the event or before the next session or something. You know, thank you very much for your time. Could be something as simple as that, or even just acknowledging that there's other people waiting and, you know, saying something like, you know, thanks
exactly.
so much.
You can always ask to have a follow-up. Yeah, you can always say, I'd love to follow up on another occasion, so so that you're not disengaging. Want to talk to them, but you acknowledge, as you said, Isla, that there are people waiting to talk to them, etc., etc. We're going to go to questions very shortly, and I just wanted to make a few final comments from my own experience. One is that it's you need to learn how to not overplay your hand There's pushy, and then there's just plain obnoxious, but there's also trying not to, the one thing that really doesn't work is if you parade your CV to them line by line item. Yes, you can use elements of your own experience if the conversation requires some illustration of some aspect of the knowledge that you're good with, but that's fine. But what I always say, and this is a selling technique that works in any circumstance, whether you're selling yourself or selling widgets, make it about the audience you're talking to rather than making it about yourself, because that makes you more interesting. It works, to say what Hector said at the beginning about we are a social animal and we like to be liked. And that's what you have to get across, is that you're interested in them as individuals, not simply about they may be a stepping stone. So I'm going to wrap up that aspect of it and go to questions, Jasmine, if there are any, because we've only got 10 minutes or so left.
There's not any questions in the chat box at the moment, but we can give it a few moments if anybody wants to pop any questions in at all.
Yeah, is any burning issue that somebody wants some either guidance or wants to share their understanding of the process? Sorry, has something come through?
Not yet, no.
The one of the aspects I think is the theme for this is that networking is both something that you need to learn to be able to do well for the whole career, and allied to that is getting one or two people who you trust, either for making introductions, but also potentially to mentor you through that process. That those people themselves, depending on where they are in their career, will also be moving ahead, etc. But it is extraordinary if you've been networking, as some of us have for decades. What goes around comes around. You talk to people, you connect with people, you engage with people, and 10, 15 years into your career, suddenly they'll pop up again, and you have a connection, and that is always useful. So don't necessarily think of networking as a right here, right now undertaking. This is a career move that will stand you in good stead through the entirety of your career and probably beyond. Not that I need to be connected by a Ouija board when I die. Obviously, I'm not thinking in terms of beyond in that sense. But the whole point of a career, or rather the corollary to a career, is that it's about the people and the who influence you and who you influence, and that will direct your career line. It's not sitting in a laboratory churning out data. Yes, that's an aspect of it, but if you genuinely want a career, then it's the people around you who will facilitate that. Any questions yet, or anybody else want to make from the panel want to make a couple of comments? Isla?
Can I hop in, Paul?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. Yeah, I would absolutely reiterate what you said about, networking is not a one-off. I mean, you may have many one-off conversations, but networking fundamentally is about building those relationships. And I would say I meet and talk to a lot of students and graduates who feel inferior because of where they're at in their career, and feel very much like, why would this person talk to me? What do I have to offer? And the point that I make is, don't underestimate, okay, maybe you can't help this person right now, but they don't necessarily expect that. But having the attitude of being open to helping them as and when you can is really important. So it may just be a simple case of saying, thank you so much for your help. If there's anything I can ever do for you, let me know. In addition to that, and yes, you may well be in a position in 2, 5, 10 years time where actually you can help them. And I've definitely been in that situation. But actually, there may be things that you can do right now. So little things like, back in pre-COVID days, if you were if you were talking to somebody local, I would actually say, invite somebody for a coffee, or drink after work or something like that, obviously depending on what they feel comfortable with. But I have done that with people who I wanted to have a chat with. For example, I found somebody whose job I was interviewing for and managed to invite them for a drink and got all sorts of juicy inside information. So don't just that offer of, can I buy you a coffee, can I do something for you, maybe you can share a bit of research, or a research paper or something. Maybe you can connect them with another person that you meet, or that so just look for opportunities. Don't sweat it if you don't have anything, but just be open and make that clear that you are open and that you're thankful, and that will go a long way.
I think Isla's summated that really nicely, because you may have read something that they're not aware of, and that, as with Isla, that's happened to me so many times, it's untrue, that you've got a snippet of information that you think, actually, you need to know this, and they hadn't known about it, and you've made that available to them. Or, once you get into your career and you can connect people. People talk about this industry or the world of having 6 degrees of separation. In the industry, it's usually 2 or 2.5. So you, in a couple of years' time, might need have some information that they might need, or vice versa. But it is, as Alice said, be open to saying to them, you have helped me, let me help you, either now or whenever. And that is, when I said it's not transactional, it's not transactional. It's part of being human, and you need to get that across more than anything else. Kim, Hector, we've got a minute or so left. Anything to add at this stage, or can we just wrap up?
Yeah, I just wanted to say again about networking, that if you don't have anything yet as a student, or if you're not there yet, it's still, networking is gonna unleash your creativity just by talking to people. And that's what I really find amazing. Like, if I speak alone to my professors, I almost think that the next breakthrough is just around the corner, just by speaking to them, And this is the type of energy that influences me as well when I network with others, that my understanding of things is just unleashed. And yeah.
And I would, Kim, I'm going to leave you the thing at the end, but one of the things that I please smile when you're talking to people. But you don't have to be serious all the time. Communication is about engagement. So for God's sake, show those teeth from time to time. Kim, I'll leave it to you to wrap up in that sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, Paul, I was going to say pretty much the exact same thing. You don't have to do much to get somebody's attention in terms of things like that. A simple smile can sometimes kind of draw somebody to you to want to speak to you, because you've got that kind of warm, open stance. I would just kind of say, regardless of where you are in your career, in terms of networking, just be brave to put yourself out there. Honestly, unless you're going to go completely off the rails with something, what is the worst that's going to happen, with it? So I think just be brave and, let your career evolve, and let the networking kind of help that, help facilitate that.
Yeah.
And I'll leave on this final. If you're uncomfortable about networking, so are a lot of people. If you see somebody in the room who's looking lonely, talk to them. You'd be amazed what you can find out. And on that note, Jasmine, I'm leaving it to you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, guys. That's some really, really valuable advice there. And I love the points about just kind of remembering that we are all humans at the end of the day. And a lot of the time, people are more than happy to talk about themselves, actually. So yeah, don't be afraid to ask questions. So yeah.
My wife doesn't think I'm human. I'm just putting it.
Funny. Right, thank you so much, everybody, for attending. And if you would like more information on Helix, please feel free to reach out, and we'd love to help you.
Good luck to everybody. Enjoy your career.
Happy networking. Bye.
Bye. Bye.